Okay. Number 1, the tree diagram represents relationships between the sets and subsets of rational numbers. So which of the following groups of numbers can be placed in section B? So I need to figure out what section B is. So I've got the rational numbers. That was my biggest group of numbers. What is this group of numbers?
Natural numbers.
It's not natural because I've got a 0.
Whole number.
So that's my whole numbers. Okay? So then what's between whole numbers and rational numbers? Integers. So now looking at my answer choices, I can get rid of B because B has a decimal, and that's only in rational numbers.
And same with C.
Same with C, it's got a decimal.
And D is not here.
D is not here, but A looks pretty good, right? A's got negatives and whole numbers.
No.
Which visual representation correctly describes the relationship between the sets and subsets of rational numbers? So, which of those matches our diagram that we had at the beginning of the year? Yes.
D.
Should be D.
You got it wrong.
D's got it's your biggest group of numbers. Integers, whole, counting, natural, all fall into that rational number circle. Those are all subsets.
Oh, wait, what's number 2?
Okay, number 3. Erin went to the grocery store and purchased milk for $2.75, a box of cereal for $4.50, and bread for $3.25. She paid with a $20 bill. How much change did she receive? So, 2 steps. What's the first step? I need to add all those groceries up.
And then subtract from 20.
Good. So when I add them all up, I get $10.50. And then I've got to subtract
$9.50.
from 20. And you should get $9.50.
Yay. Oh, this is 9. That's what I got. I got 9.50.
Okay, look at number 4. Andrew has 6.5 cups of flour. The recipe for a cake he's making calls for 4 3/4 cup of flour. And he also needs 9 cups of flour for a cookie recipe. How much more flour will he need to make the cake and the cookies? So the first step, figure out how much he needs. I need to see how much flour altogether he needs that he doesn't have. So I want to add those 2 numbers, but I can't add 9 to 4 3/4 because it has to be a mixed number. So how do I turn 9 to a mixed number?
You get 8, or like you take away 1 and then you turn it into 8 4/4.
Good. So I can take 1 from the 9, make it 8. That 1 I got rid of turns into a fraction to match the top fraction. So 4/4. When I add them, I get 12 7/4. You can go ahead and change that, or you can leave it the way it is, 12 7/4. And then what do I need to do next? If I already have 6.5 cups,
You subtract it from 6.5.
I want to subtract. So 12 7/4 minus 6.5.
Equals 7 1/4.
Good. So, because I've got to change that 1/2 to 2/4 because I can't subtract them yet.
Yeah, that's what I got.
And then change that 5/4. So 7 1/4. Okay, number 5. To complete a planner project, Mr. Wilson will purchase cedar boards that are 2 inches wide and 10 feet long. He'll need to cut down the length of the boards into pieces that are 1 1/3 inches long. How many pieces can Mr. Watson cut from each 10-foot long board so he can determine how many he'll need to purchase? Okay, so it says I'm going to cut from the length. So this 2-inch wide business, I'm going to get rid of that because I don't need it. It's just confusing. Okay, so I've got 10 feet, and I'm going to divide that out into pieces that are 1 1/3 inch long. But I don't want to divide 10 by 1 1/3 because I've got feet and inches. So I have to turn that 10 feet, into inches before I do anything. So how many inches are in 1 foot?
12, so we have to times that by 12.
So times 12 by 10.
No, it's not 120.
It's 120.
And subtract. Oh, wait, no. Turn.
So I've got 120 inches, and I need to divide that by 1 1/3. Remember when we divide, I've got to turn any mixed numbers good. So that should be 4/3 into an improper fraction. And then what else do we need to remember if dividing? Keep, change, flip. Keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep 120 over 1, change division to multiplication, and flip 4/3 to be 3/4. Okay?
It's 360 fourths, and then you can simplify that by, you could, so 360 divided by 4 would be 90.
That's right.
That's
That's right. 360 divided by 4. Okay, number 6. Maggie discovered an error in her checkbook register and recalculated her balance, determining that she was overdrawn. Recalculated her balance, determined that she was overdrawn. Her balance in her checking account is negative $435.26. She saved 2 of her paychecks, each in the amount of $178.30 for a special occasion. If she deposited, so she puts this money in, both checks in her checking account, what would her balance be now? So 2 steps. What's the first step?
178.30 plus 178.
I can either add those 2 checks together, or I can multiply by 2 to see how much she's going to put into the account. Okay, I had 2 decimals in my problem, so 2 in my answer. Okay, so that's how much she added, so that's a positive number. And then her balance in her checkbook right now is a negative number. So if I have a positive number and a negative number, those integer rules, same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract. So 435.26, the bigger number on top, minus 356.60. Shouldn't be 178.
If I ever go negative 430.
Okay, so then go back up and look at the problem. I've got negative 435 and positive 356. Which of those is the bigger digit?
435.
The 435 is bigger, which was negative, so that means my answer is also negative. So negative. Negative 78.66. I did not check that one. Number 7. The temperature on Monday was 15 degrees. It dropped 20 degrees overnight. What was the temperature Tuesday morning? How do I write that out?
20 minus 50. You could do 20 minus 15.
What's your starting temperature?
15.
Okay, and then drops. So that's
Down. Negative 5.
subtracting 20.
What I just did was like 20 minus 15.
Kaysen is making decorated jelly bean bags for a party. Each bag contains 5/8 pounds of jelly beans. If Kaysen has purchased 1,000 pounds of jelly beans, how many party bags can he make? So I've got 1,000 pounds of jelly beans. I need to split that 1,000 up into 5/8 pound bags. So if I'm splitting something up, what am I doing? Dividing. So I want to divide what I have by 5/8.
What are you doing?
Keep, change, flip. Keep, change, flip. So 1,000 I can put over 1 to make it a fraction. Then I'm going to keep it. Change division to multiplication. And flip 5/8 to be 8/5. If you don't, if you just multiply across, you'll end up with the same answer. Because you're still gonna have to divide, whether you reduce it beforehand or not. You're gonna have to divide. You're gonna have to divide.
I know this. This is easy.
Oh my god.
8,000. That's gonna be like.
Number 9. Jane is selling picture frames and wants to compare the areas of each of the frames that she sells. One is 1/2 foot wide and 4.8. What is the area of this picture frame? Area means length times width. We're multiplying those two together. So 1/2, or your width, 4.8 times 1/2. That 1/2 I would turn into a decimal. So 4.8 times 0.5. So 40, 24, and then I've got 2 numbers in my decimal, in my problem, so 2 behind my answer, 2.4. Number 10, Sean has $319 in his checking until the end of the month. Sean writes a check for $459. How much money does Sean have now? First of all, if he has $319 and if he spends more than he has, should he end up with a positive or negative amount?
Negative.
So I can go ahead and eliminate A and D. Then I want to subtract the bigger number by the smaller number.